The problem is the hook, but it's also the trigger. Nobody has ever spent $1 unless they have understood that this dollar is going to solve a problem. The messaging advice that I hear that I believe is completely overrated and almost worthless is we have to tell our story. What people don't understand about words is words build worlds. Everything that they enjoy or don't enjoy was built with the words that came out of their mouths.
So what do most business leaders get wrong about messaging?
I think what most business leaders get wrong about messaging is they fail to own a problem. If you want your company to grow, your idea to spread, your products to sell, your team to listen to you, your mission to be clear, it all starts with the problem. You've got to identify the problem that you are solving and communicate that problem so effectively that everybody who has that problem understands exactly what you're talking about and essentially pulls out their credit card or is ready to vote for you or whatever you're trying to do. The problem is the hook, but it's also the trigger. Nobody has ever spent $1 unless they have understood that this dollar is going to solve a problem. And so when you really nail down a sound bite that communicates the problem you solve, that's when you begin to see traction in the attention that you're getting as a business.
It seems like most business owners don't do that because they love their solution
That's
so
right.
much.
Yeah, they talk about the solution. So, essentially it's like me saying, hey, I've got some medicine. It's really great medicine. It's extremely effective. Would you like to buy it? Well, the obvious next question is medicine for what, right? And so if you actually start with the, hey, if you have fatigue every day at 2 o'clock and you're really tired and you want to take a nap and you find it hard to pay attention after lunch, it's probably because you struggle with X. I have a medicine. And so you'll sell a lot more medicine with the second way of messaging that than you will with the first.
So whose job is it, or who should own messaging their solution?
The CEO, the executive, the person in charge needs to micromanage that messaging to a minute detail. If you have heard anybody say, hey, you can turn that over to marketing, you have gotten very, very bad advice. You need a master plan on your messaging, and all of the words about your product, your company need to come from you and be disseminated throughout the entire staff.
Which is one of the biggest challenges, is so many CEOs think my job is to set the vision, not to work on what they might consider as being the creative side. So how do you come in and help people and leaders, executives who don't necessarily see themselves as creative, to talk to them about messaging?
Well, you can actually hire somebody to help you figure out your message, but then once you have that message down, it needs to be broken down into sound bites and repeated over and over. All messaging is an exercise in memorization. What I mean by that is, our job as leaders, whether it's our team, our customers, our stakeholders, whatever it is to repeat the sound bites so clearly that the people we're talking to eventually have them memorized. And so that means the same language repeated over and over.
What are some of the messaging pieces of advice that you're hearing that you think are super overrated?
Boy, that's tough. I think the messaging advice that I hear that I believe is completely overrated and almost worthless is we have to tell our story. I 100% don't believe that. I think you can tell your story, that's fine, but it's not going to grow your business. What you actually have to do is invite the customer into a story. And the story has to be about them. They are struggling with something, and we have a product that can help them overcome that so that they can win the day. If I am at a cocktail party and somebody says, Dom, what do you do? And I say, well, it's complicated. I used to be a writer, and then I started this company called StoryBrand. It's an ancient narrative framework that, you explored a little bit, and it helps you come up with sound bites. And by the way, I came up with that when I was writing memoirs. I'm effectively telling my story, but the person is not interested in buying my product. If I actually say, well, thanks for asking for my story, I have heard so many business leaders ramble on and on about their products and services in such a boring way that they are turning people off. This really bothered me, so I created a framework to help them clarify my message. Sounds like I'm telling my story, I'm actually telling your story. Yeah. I talked about your problem and how my solution fits into your story so that you can win the day.
So what are the elements of a great framework to tell your story?
Well, there are 7, but let me just give you a few that you can remember. One is start with the problem, position your product as the solution to the problem, and then the third thing is paint a picture of what life looks like after I solve my problem using your product. So if you do those 3 things, if you say, a lot of people struggle with this, that's why we created this, and after they use it, they experience this, people are going to start listening to you.
What are the most comically disastrous marketing mistakes that make you die inside a little bit?
There is no comically disastrous marketing mistake. They're all tragic and sad. I don't listen to any of them, or I don't laugh at any of them. You know, if you just look at the political spectrum, which I say that because we're all familiar with politics.
Sure.
You know, Jeb Bush tried to become president with a tagline, "Jeb can fix it."
Yeah.
Well, if Jeb can fix it, Jeb is the hero of the story, and he's fixing something that he hasn't defined. So that's going to fall on deaf ears. Hillary Clinton tried to get elected president with the tagline, "I'm with her." So she's the hero of the story going, we don't know. None of that is an offer. It's not a very clear offer. And when people are hearing your messaging, what they're actually asking is, what is in this for me? And how is this going to help me survive? And if you can't communicate what's in it for them and how it's going to help them survive, that is, make money, save money, reduce anxiety, get better sleep, feel better at night, have deeper quality relationships, you know, whatever that is. If they can't figure out within seconds what's in it for them, they will tune you out.
What's the single most fulfilled moment in your career to date ever?
Well, you know, there's been a few of them. I've had the opportunity to work a lot with national security on China policy. And, you know, they will tell me China policy, and then I will turn around and kind of say, well, what if you say it this way? And just knowing that you're working on messaging for an organization or an executive that they're going to use to save lives, I think is a big deal. Was able to work with Ambassador John Richmond on a global strategy on human trafficking. He had the strategy, but we were able to put it together and communicate that in such a way that governments around the world would get behind it. I think what people don't understand about words is words build worlds. And the people who are watching me talk to you right now, their entire world, whether it's a good one or a bad one, whether they have quality relationships, whether they have a great company, whether they're making a lot of money, everything that they enjoy or don't enjoy was built with the words that came out of their mouths. You change those words, and you will change those worlds.
Messaging in 2025, why is it so different?
Messaging in 2025 hasn't changed a whole lot, except we have to emphasize the fact that you need sound bites. People's attention spans are obviously shorter than they've ever been, but I think that's a good thing because it gives you the necessary challenge of saying, hey, we've got to break this down into sound bites that we repeat. Now, the sound bite strategy is the first phase of messaging. It's curiosity, enlightenment, commitment. So you've got to define the sound bites that you are using in order to get people from curiosity to enlightenment. So they're wondering, how are you going to help me survive? Once they understand or believe that you can help them survive, they move into enlightenment. And enlightenment is where they're doing due diligence and research as to whether your solution is actually going to be fitting for them. At that point, you can use a lot more words, you can get out of your sound bites. But where most business leaders fail, most politicians, my God, they fail, most initiatives fail, is they've got the enlightenment down. They never actually came up with the messaging strategy to get people through curiosity.
So if I'm a business owner, how do I know if my messaging sucks?
If it's not working. Yeah, if you have a great product that people are enjoying and it works and it's not selling, your problem is messaging. It's the way that you are talking about it. That's the problem. You know, I worked with an organization that dominates the fish tank aquarium, fish food market in American pet stores. I think they do about $100 million a year. And they came to me, we spent a day together. They were having trouble selling fish tanks and equipment to anybody, any families. They were selling them to hobbyists, but not families. And so, you know, we spent a day together and came up with 3 words: kids love aquariums. We put kids love aquariums on the aquariums, on the fish food, on everything we could, signage in that department, and those 3 words skyrocketed sales. So they had a $100 million increase in sales in their, they had a 99% increase in sales in their test market, and they're currently rolling out those 3 words. So at the end of distribution, you would imagine they would be $100 million richer.
What are you studying right now that you're nerding out about?
China policy. Kevin Rudd and the avoidable war and all the stuff that Xi Jinping is up to. Yeah. It's a weird thing to nerd out on, and believe me, it's nerdy.
What are you having to study right now that you don't like studying?
I don't study anything I don't like studying. But I guess I could answer that question in just like, the global problem of human trafficking is hard to look at.
Yeah.
So you don't like knowing about what's going on in the world, but there are solutions that hopefully will get employed that solve that.